of those cold mornings in Benin City, where getting out of bed seems like war. Well, don't worry, we're here to give you that warm morning tea that will ensure that you have the energy you need to do all you need to do for today. Good morning, viewers, and welcome to your favorite morning program. Yes, talking about Dawn on VOS TV, your warm morning tea that wakes you up with information, education, and of course, we entertain you here on Dawn because we also bring you entertainment news. I am Felicia Udeji. And as always, I am not alone in the studio. This morning, I happen to be joined by a true Niger Delta man. One that is not just looking like a Niger Delta, but is looking like a professor. Yes, I'm talking about the one and only Jude Aweke with his glasses.
Felicia Udeji. Good morning, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Mr.
Good morning,
Jude.
dear Nigerians, dear esteemed viewers. Thank you for joining us here on Dawn. Yes, your #1 program here, where we talk about some trendy issues. We don't just talk about them, we discuss them beyond the surface, giving you a glimpse of them. So thank you for joining us once again.
Yes, thank you for joining us this morning. And we do apologize for bringing this show a bit behind time. Technical glitches, as you know, unavoidable in the media industry. We'll be kickstarting, as usual, with our newspaper review, looking at headlines, making rounds across major newspaper. So do stay with us after this quick break. Okay, welcome back. It is still Dawn on VOS TV, and we'll be kickstarting with the headlines making rounds on Vanguard newspaper this morning. Let's see what the Vanguard has for us. Let's start with the headline at the top, which says manufacturers, agri sector face up to 60% interest rates. That is those who manufacture the goods, the products that we consume on a daily basis. They face up to 60% hike in their interest rates in terms of the loan that they take to produce these goods and services, which means we should be expecting a bit of hike in prices with this hike in interest rates. Another one there says release Kanu or return him to Kenya, says Southeast Monarch. Speaking to Tinubu, they says no equivalence between Kanu Igoho, says presidency. That's the Southeast are mandating the president that he must release Kanu, Nnamdi Kanu, or better still, return him to Kenya. Well, and the president has responded that there is no equivalence between Kanu and Igoho. Another headline says, Lent, Ramadan begin today. Yes, talking about the Islamic fast. It has begun today, as well as the Christian equivalent of it, Lent. Today was Ash Wednesdays by the Catholic. So it has begun today. Then moving on, Tinubu, Trump, Harris, others mourn as U.S. civil rights leader Jesse Jackson dies at 84. A very big loss there. A great leader. He has passed on. Other headline says, Tinubu unveils Nigeria industrial policy, demands speedy implementation. Dangote signs $400 million equipment deal to fast-track refinery expansion. Dangote signs $400 million equipment deal to fast-track refinery expansion. It means we should be expecting more production in terms of petrol. There'll be more supplies. Armed men abduct 6 travelers on Makurdi Naka Road, demand 100 million naira ransom. Nigeria and others ignore our judgment, ECOWAS court laments. And now let's look at the screaming headline, 2027. Reps cave in, back Senate on Electoral Act amendment. 2027. Reps cave in, back Senate in Electoral Act amendment. The writers there says minority caucus stage walk out over adoption of manual electronic transmission of results. Police tear gas protesters at NAS. Labour, civil society demand mandatory e-transmission. Senate reduces election notice to 300 days to enable INEC adjust timetable. Amechi, opposition leaders merely grandstanding. That's coming from Wike there, the FCT. Well, to get a copy of it and read up the stories that catches your interest. Let's now move over to the Guardian newspaper and see what the Guardian has for us this morning. On the Guardian newspaper, starting with the top headline, it says 2027 elections take shape as APC majority prevails. Legal tussle looms. Legal battles. Lawyers should be ready to help them spend the money. Niger residents flee to Benin Republic as terrorists invade Bogu again. Niger residents, I beg your pardon, flee to Benin Republic as terrorists invade Bogu again. Remi Tinubu seeks prayers for Nigeria as Lent Ramadan begin today. The wife of the president, yes, the first lady, is seeking prayers for Nigeria, even as the Muslims and Christians begin their fasts today. And Zamfara governor alleges exclusion from federal government support over party affiliation. Moving on, terrorists kill 4 in Kogi, play 2 attacks. That can be found on page 30 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Terrorists kill 4 in Kogi, play 2 attacks. And the final story I'll be taking says hoodlums invade, disrupt APC stakeholders meeting in Ondo. Hoodlums invade, disrupt APC stakeholders meeting in Ondo. If you look at the front page of the newspaper, you see a man lying down on the floor. That is the APC chairman of Ondo State, Ade Adetimei, lying on the floor moments after he was attacked during the party's stakeholders meeting in Akure. So there was a whole lot of commotion at the APC stakeholders meeting in Akure yesterday. So do grab a copy of the Guardian newspaper and find out other stories making rounds and read up the story that interests you this morning. So I'd like to start, Jude. Yesterday, the House of Representatives met, and prior to now, they had approved mandatory transmission of election results. But after they met yesterday, about 55 senators voted against it, and they took up the position of the Senate, which is not mandatory. In other words, the proviso that they are going to, when the mandatory, the electronic fails, they revert to manual. And 15 of the senators were the one that insisted on mandatory transmission. So out of that, 15 of the senators, when they noticed that the majority are taken up, they left the house in anger. And with this, Nigerians are asking, why did the reps suddenly change their mind? What do you think made them change their mind and back the Senate?
You know, the show of shame, that was displayed on the floor of the Green Chamber yesterday. Did you watch the sitting?
No, I didn't follow up the sitting.
You need to see the show of shame where the speaker of the House ignored, members of the House even when they were agitating. that, look, we have to debate this. He was just ignoring them. He ignored them and kept hitting clause 60, clause 5,
3.
clause. He was just, in fact, he stood as a judge. He stood as, he was just there as a judge, ignoring his clients and lawyers. Do you understand?
So
clause 5, clause 6.
With such,
in fact, everywhere was rowdy.
Can we now say that there is no unity in our Senate and House of Rep? Because this is supposed to be a gathering of people who come to represent the interests of their people. And when their voices, certain parties' voices are not allowed to be heard on an issue, it means that they are not allowing for equal representation.
Let me tell you, democracy was murdered on the floor of the Green Chambers yesterday. Democracy was murdered. And it shouldn't be so. The world is watching. The world is watching all of these things that are unfolding. The world is watching. And they are making mockery of the country. They are making mockery of the country. We should be objective.
Okay, now let's come to the aspect of the protesters who were tear-gassed yesterday. This has become a recurrent thing in Nigeria, where we see armed forces actually molesting protesters. What do you think this means for protests going forward, and even for the security officials who engage in this?
I really don't know. There is need for attitudinal change in the mindset of, some of these force personnel and police officers. They should be given orientation that protesters are not enemies. They should be, their brains should be wired. Their brains should be wired in such a way that they realize that protesters are not enemies. That you see protest and you begin to, tear gas protesters. It's protest. It's your civic responsibility. It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility. So, everything boils down to failure in leadership. Yes, I must tell you. Failure. You deploy people out there, you don't even give them orientation, you don't enlighten them what they are supposed to do. So some of them, their mindset is just, okay, these are the enemies. These are the enemies of the state. These are the enemies of the nation. So they go against them, fire tear gas. Sometimes they even use live bullets. We've seen cases of such.
Yes, we
protests where live bullets were used.
Of such. You watching us out there would like to hear your opinion on some of the stories. What is your take in terms of this Electoral Act? Because it's something Nigerians have been clamoring for, mandatory. And even as of yesterday, protesters still came out to insist that we want mandatory real-time electronic transmission of results. We are not okay with the proviso. We are not okay with the clause. That this will go a long way to to eradicate the issues we have as regards election malpractices. But as of yesterday, the reps have also okayed the Senate version. What is your take on this? Can you say that our representatives, our senators, are not actually standing for the voices of the people? Drop your take in the comment section as we'll be reading from you.
Felicia, I must tell you that the lawmakers that we have, they are not standing for the voices of the people. There's a mazan that says, "Voc populi, voc Dei." The voice of the people is the voice of God. So the voice of the people should be heard. Yeah, they elected you for you to represent their interest, not your interest, not your individualistic
speaking
interest.
Speaking of election, the Zamfara state governor is alleging that the federal government are excluding him from allocation. Why? Because of his party affiliation, because he's not part of the ruling party. What can you say? Because I think we had similar occurrence during the past administration, where he came out to cry severally that because he was in the opposition party, he was not being given the needed allocation and some certain aspects that the federal government had to do. I think when it had to do with the Auchi federal government road, to the extent that they had to put up a signboard saying that, okay, this is a federal government road. So what can you say about how ruling parties work with governments from the opposition party?
Yes, I understand the fact that everyone is, you know, singing the song, "On your mandates we shall stand, on your mandates we shall stand," and the music, they are enjoying it. But it shouldn't, you know, be a hindrance to those who have a different political affiliation. You know, it shouldn't hinder them. You shouldn't use because of, okay, they have different political affiliation, then you... Now, is it complaining in terms of FAC or what?
It's complaining in terms of allocations.
That is FAC and other...
Yes.
I think the government should, if, though it's alleged, if it is true, there is need for them to have a rethink. Because you shouldn't, you know, deny the people of their benefits simply because their governor is, yes, belongs to another party.
Okay,
So
let's also look
so.
at this Southeast demanding the release of their leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. They're saying categorically to the federal government that it's either they release him or they return him back to Kenya. Do you think this is feasible, being that a sit at home has been cancelled? I mean,
yes, yesterday I watched one of the Southeast monarchs, you know, appealing to the president to expedite action and release Nnamdi Kanu, who is now in prison, right?
yes.
Well, for me, if it is necessary for peace and for tranquility, then he should be released.
But this is someone
But,
has been sentenced to life
well,
imprisonment.
yes, if you also take a look at the gravity of, should I say crime now? Because the court has proven him guilty. And they say he should go in for it. But if they are making passionate appeal to the president, if they are making passionate appeal to the president to do the needful and release him, then I think there is need for him to heed to their appeal and release him. Just for peace. Yes.
Just for peace to reign.
Yes, for peace. And, you know, they are aggrieved.
You know, there have been a whole lot of controversy regarding the